The morning sun stretched across the Wyoming prairie as Ethan Walker stood outside his weathered ranch house, wondering if he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Months earlier, drought, debt, and loneliness had pushed the hard-working cowboy to answer a mail-order matchmaking advertisement. He expected a woman searching for a fresh beginning. Instead, the stagecoach arrived carrying Grace Harper with only a worn suitcase, a faded Bible, and quiet determination. She apologized for bringing almost nothing, believing honesty was better than false promises. Ethan smiled politely, though deep inside he worried how someone with so little could survive on a struggling American ranch, already fighting to stay alive. Grace quickly realized the ranch faced more than financial trouble. The barns needed repairs, fences leaned dangerously, and the cattle were thinner than Ethan admitted. Every evening he studied unpaid bills, hoping another miracle would appear before the bank claimed the land his late parents had built. Grace never complained about the tiny farmhouse or endless chores. Instead, she watched carefully, asking thoughtful questions about livestock, crops, weather patterns, and nearby towns. Ethan assumed curiosity helped her adjust. He never imagined she quietly noticed opportunities everyone else had ignored for years. During her first week, Grace wandered through an abandoned storage barn while cleaning forgotten tools. Hidden beneath dusty blankets stood an antique foot-powered quilting frame alongside colorful fabric scraps left by Ethan's grandmother decades earlier. Grace gently touched the faded materials, memories flooding back from childhood when her mother taught her traditional quilting and textile design. Before hardship forced her into domestic work, Grace had earned recognition at county fairs for remarkable handmade quilts. She never mentioned this talent, because survival had always seemed more important than dreams. Yet standing inside that barn, hope quietly returned for the first time in years. Without asking for expensive supplies, Grace washed old fabrics, repaired torn pieces, and transformed forgotten scraps into breathtaking quilt patterns inspired by Wyoming landscapes. Golden fields, blue mountains, wild horses, and bright sunsets appeared beneath her careful stitches. Ethan noticed the beautiful blankets covering chairs and beds, but considered them simply thoughtful decorations. One Saturday, Grace convinced him to visit the local farmer's market, carrying 3 finished quilts. Ethan doubted anyone would pay much for handmade blankets. Before lunchtime ended, every quilt sold at prices exceeding an entire week's cattle earnings. Customers immediately requested custom designs, leaving Grace stunned and Ethan speechless. News spread rapidly through neighboring counties about the mysterious ranch woman creating extraordinary quilts celebrating the American West. Boutique owners contacted Grace with larger orders, while tourists searched specifically for her handcrafted work. She insisted every quilt include a handwritten story about Wyoming ranch life, making each piece personal and unforgettable. Ethan converted the unused barn into a comfortable workshop where Grace trained widows, struggling mothers, and elderly neighbors seeking additional income. Soon, laughter replaced silence inside the old building as sewing machines hummed from sunrise until evening. The struggling ranch slowly transformed into a place offering both employment and renewed community spirit. The growing business solved problems far beyond household expenses. Income from quilt sales allowed Ethan to repair irrigation systems, purchase healthier cattle, replace broken fences, and settle overdue bank payments. Local suppliers benefited from increased orders for fabric, thread, and shipping materials. Visitors traveling to buy Grace's famous quilts also purchased local honey, fresh produce, handmade leather goods, and Western crafts from nearby families. What began as one hidden talent unexpectedly revived the entire rural community. Even skeptical ranchers admitted the quiet newcomer had accomplished something no government program or wealthy investor ever managed. Despite the business success, Ethan admired Grace most for her compassion rather than her craftsmanship. She secretly donated quilts to veterans recovering in hospitals, families who lost homes in fires, and children entering foster care. Every stitch, pattern carried encouragement, reminding strangers they were never forgotten. When Ethan discovered her anonymous generosity, he finally understood why customers loved her creations. They purchased more than beautiful blankets. They carried home genuine hope woven into every thread. Grace believed kindness multiplied when shared, and her actions proved that belief stronger than any spoken promise ever could. One autumn afternoon, the bank manager unexpectedly visited the ranch. Ethan feared another warning about overdue obligations, but instead received congratulations. The ranch had become one of the county's strongest small businesses, with financial stability extending several years ahead. Local newspapers featured Grace and Ethan as symbols of resilience, entrepreneurship, and community partnership. Reporters repeatedly asked how such remarkable success happened. Grace always smiled before answering that every person carries a gift waiting to be discovered. Sometimes difficult journeys simply lead us toward the place where those gifts finally become someone else's blessing. As winter snow gently covered the Wyoming fields, Ethan reflected on the incredible journey that had changed his life forever. The woman who arrived carrying almost nothing had brought something far greater than money, possessions, or social status. She carried creativity, courage, compassion, and unwavering faith. Those invisible treasures rescued not only one struggling cowboy, but an